Oh good, the babysitter's here. It's nearly their bedtime, maybe read them a story or something, I don't care. Just make sure they don't get hold of any knives, and if they get into the freezer, don't let them eat the white popsicles, they're for an experiment. Alright, I'll be off. Good luck.
Well, at least I didn't get into the white popsicles, I guess. Now that you're all tucked in with your favorite knife, how's about that bedtime story? Factorio is a strange game. You gather resources to create a factory, to gather more resources to create a better factory, to gather more resources to create a better factory ad nauseum, while you desperately try to convince your loved ones that you don't have a problem, and that you can stop whenever you want to, no really. This quirk of a software engineer's fever dream sits pretty atop Steam's 100 best games of all time list, but for this story I want to focus not on the Sisyphean gameplay, but rather its unusual price tag. If this price tag had a mouth, it could tell me about the wild, wild west days of early access, its own vilification during the consumer-friendly bang-for-buck crusades of Steam and Humble Bundle, and its triumph over G2A's shady practices just to end up in the hot seat once again. This is the story of a game that never goes on sale, and only ever increases in price. December 31, 2012. Born to proud parents, Woob Software, Baby's first asking price was a wallet-scorching $0 American. If you asked nicely through an email, Woob Software would let you play with the baby for free. 2 months later, a crowdfunding campaign was launched and the free baby price tag so tender and mild grew to $13 American. But you could still flirt with the devs through email and gain access to the alpha that way. Hugs and kisses are nice, but they don't keep the lights on. So with full transparency on their forums, Woob Software announced the alpha would only be given to paying investors. 3 reasons were cited. Firstly, this was done out of respect for the people supporting Factorio with cold hard cash. Secondly, responding to the flood of emails for free samples was taking time away from actually developing the game. And lastly, but most importantly, giving your game away for free while you're trying to sell it is like shooting yourself in the foot to save someone else a bullet. While Woob Software were busy being responsible parents, the Steam Marketplace was the cool mom handing out Jell-O shooters at a Sweet 16 mosh pit announcing their early access initiative. Gamers could help push unfinished games across the development finish line with their mother's credit card. In return, they could play the game sooner and cheaper than the full release, if there was a full release. But how bad could things get without quality control or a refund policy? By 2014, customers were starting to feel the burn of Steam's never-ending summer. The marketplace was breaking out with asset drops and scams, and only 25% of games in early access were actually being completed. It took massive public outcry and many news cycles to take down the worst offenders like Earth Year 2066, but plenty of smaller, sketchy games skirted under the watchful closed eyes of Steam. At this time, the platform wasn't as consumer-friendly as it is today, because the real product was consumer savviness. You could potentially make amazing purchases buying into early access games before the price increased at full release. You could buy games for up to 90% off during an 8-hour flash sale during an already ongoing sale event. You can make money from gambling or auctioning off virtual items. Those sales are responsible for most of the unplayed games in my Steam library. All of this and more was possible with the consequence that maybe a few suckers got caught under the tires of the American dream. And everyone wanted in on the action, except Factorio, because Factorio never goes on sale. In fact, after careful consideration, the alpha price tag had grown from a $13 infant to a $20 toddler, with plans for continued development. Woob Software still refused to partake in sales out of respect for their early backers and respect for people's time. The Factorio pricing logic goes as follows. If the price never drops, then potential buyers don't have to waste their time and efforts bargain hunting. The best time to get Factorio was when it was free in 2012. The second best time is now. Admittedly, 2016 was a weird time to be a $20 bill on the internet. Steam did away with flash sales and swapped over to a more consumer-friendly model with a refund policy that let you return any game you played for only 2 hours within 2 weeks. The cool kid on the block was Humble Bundle, combining the primal satisfaction of hunting down a good bargain with the wholesomeness of knowing your money went to a good cause. And Woob Software once more reaffirmed that Factorio will never go on sale. On the outside, Factorio was the party pooper refusing to let savvy consumers play ball, not even for charity. Healthy pricing standards look like electric fences to people who want to take advantage of a good deal. Speaking of which, another digital video game marketplace by the name of G2A was also putting in a bid for my $20 in 2016. The price differences were obscene, reminiscent of Steam's flash sales and surpassing those of any other marketplace. Savvy consumerism was back in high demand, and it was fed by an obscene supply of illegitimate goods. G2A was repeatedly accused of allowing people to sell fraudulently obtained video game keys. There was little to prevent keys acquired through credit card fraud from being sold, and many developers outright insisted that their customers pirate their games instead of buying from what was referred to as the gray marketplace. Negative perception and boycotts were the extent of the consequences suffered by G2A, but it was enough at times to end partnerships with the likes of Riot Games in 2015 and 2016 and Gearbox Publishing in 2017. In 2019, Unknown Worlds Entertainment were the latest studio to accuse G2A of muscling them out of their own product, and in response, G2A issued a challenge to all developers. They asked developers to audit their keys and guaranteed to pay them 10 times the value of any chargebacks resulting from problematic keys sold on G2A. The time and effort alone could end up being not worth the money, and proving that G2A's keys were ill-gotten to begin with made this an impossible feat. Who's to say the keys weren't acquired through sales or promotions? Woob Software's to say because Factorio never goes on sale. Factorio's price tag had actually grown since 2018 to $25. It's not unheard of, but chances were slim someone was waiting for a $5 price shift. Woob Software had also compiled a list of all the fraudulent keys and support emails received from customers whose Factorio keys disappeared after a chargeback. In 2020, G2A paid back $39,600 for 198 confirmed stolen Factorio keys and announced an effort to combat fraud in their marketplace. Woob Software was the only studio to take up the challenge and win, and afterwards they went back to developing Factorio and remaining faithful to their price philosophy. In anticipation of full release, Factorio received its big boy price tag of $30, a common practice, but due to inflation and the cost of continued development, Factorio's price tag grew a smidgen more to $35 at the start of 2023, a less common practice. Factorio was the talk of the town once more, but no mention was made of their victory over G2A, their transparency over the years when it came to their pricing, or the fact that the game was initially free. The spotlight was on the price tag, a price tag that never saw a sale and only ever grew. The moral of the story: even when a company has a stoic commitment to fair pricing and loyalty to its fanbase during an entire decade that saw some of the worst online consumer practices imaginable, the price is never right.